Hello everybody and a warm welcome to Portimao, just off the Atlantic coast. We're at the Algarve circuit this weekend for the latest round of the European element of the Hankook 24-hour series. It is a full 24 hours this weekend, the first time we're doing this in Europe this year after 12 hours, split 12-hour races in Mugello in Italy, Spa in Belgium and Brno in the Czech Republic. Of course, the start of the year saw the season kick off at Dubai in the now traditional January date. So we began in the United Arab Emirates, and this mini European tour continues in Portugal this weekend. And we then look forward after this to another 24-hour race at Barcelona, which is the last 2 days of August and the first day of September, with after that, a couple of months later, the trip across the Atlantic to the 24 hours of COTA at Austin, Texas. Very much looking forward to that final event of the year. There are two ways that you can slice this. If you are a team looking for points, or indeed a driver, you can go for the Championship of the Continents, which includes Dubai and COTA, and then your best score from Portugal or Spain. And then there's the European season, which takes us from Mugello through to Barcelona, where all 5 of the European legs are points scoring. So you're listening to the Radio Show Limited network of channels. We're in sound and vision now, courtesy of the live stream, in readiness for qualifying. Johnny Palmer, Joe Bradley and Paul Truswell ready to take you through this 2 separate session format then. First of all, for the TCE series cars, they get 45 minutes, and then after a 15-minute break, it'll be another 45-minute session rather for the GT series cars. But before we hear from Joe and Paul in the box, it's a very good afternoon to Diana Binks, who's going to be in the pit lane for this first session.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, we're all getting ready for the TCE qualifying to get underway. There's still a few minutes left yet before they head out onto the track. The track temperature is around 24 degrees, or the temperature here is 24 degrees, I should say, and it is hotting up, but the wind has also picked up, so that will have a bit of an impact on this qualifying session. Behind me is the 676 Synchro Motorsport. They're getting ready to go out. As you can see, the drivers behind the wheel, they're preparing the car to go out on track. Not any other cars have left the garage yet so far that I can see, but we have 7 cars going out in this session, so we'll get it underway at any moment now.
Thank you, Diana Binks, and you'll keep us tuned to the stories that break from this first session then. And the TCE series cars are starting to line up now at the end of the pit lane. I think the difficulty will come in the GT series session, in that finding a bit of quiet track could be tricky. For these 7 cars, I don't think that's going to be a problem. This is a 4.6 kilometre circuit, 4,653 metres, and significant elevation change as well. Do you know, I went to the lady that runs the media centre during the lunch break to see if she could give me a figure on the meterage distance, but nobody seems to know the answers to that yet. No,
maximum rise, well, it doesn't really help this. Maximum rise 6.2%, maximum fall 12%, but I'm not really sure
but
where the benchmark is.
I'd quite like to know, because apparently the lowest part of the track, well, there was some argument about that. Some people said turn 4, which is at the back if you're in the main paddock and on the garages looking forward to the main straight. But behind you, when the track curls in on itself, that is quite a low point, and there's a great tower there, which is one of the circuit buildings, and provides the top deck of that tower provides a great view of turn 4 and the exit then through the kink at 5 and up to 6. But the lowest point of the track, I'm told, is at turn 1, because the main straight's relatively level, and then it drops away at the last minute, and it's a downhill braking area, a bit like Dubai in that respect. So that's the lowest point of the track, and the highest point is turns 10 and 11, known as the Portimao corner, in fact, and that is the highest point. Although that next section is very interesting, in that you kind of go along a bit of a shelf through, 12 and 13, and then on to 14, where the track's very, very technical indeed.
Some unofficial testing going on in the 417 Aston Martin. Remember, this is the Virage car that had some overheating problems. Bit of unofficial testing because they took the car out on the road. I'm not sure what the legislation is in Portugal with regards to MOTs and road licences and stuff, but We're getting a good view of the locale around the Portimao track now. I wonder if he's took his pass to get back in. We are literally seeing on our live stream, for those of you with pictures, in-car shots from the 417 Aston on the local roads.
Cool.
Bizarre.
Well, that's how motorsport used to be done, wasn't it?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
drove
drive the
your
car.
race car to the circuit, you raced it, and then hopefully, if it's still in one piece, you get home again in it.
Yeah, I wonder if he's stuck at the gate now, wondering if he's going to get let in because he hasn't brought his pass. Can't park there, mate.
It's possible.
Got a car
Certainly
pass.
possible. So TCE's heading out onto track now, and we've got nearly all of them. Just the 101 machine, which might be Luke Brokers to do the opening bit of qualifying in that car.
Johnny, it is. Spoke to Luke before, just after practice, and he told me that he was qualifying the car.
Okay.
Not sure if it's the first time he's qualified the car, but I said, no pressure, son, no pressure. All down to you then. I mean, all right, it's always arguable with such a long distance race as to how important qualifying is, other than bragging rights. And perhaps more so with such a small field in TCE, 5 TCR cars, 2 cars in A3, and I do know that the synchro cars, their plan is to just go out, put a banker in, and then call it a day and save the car for night practice.
Yeah, as far as I know, Luke will have qualified before, but probably in the TCR Middle East series that he did at the beginning of this year, which was where he started his racing career. Yeah. But not in 24H series, although he has driven in the 24H series before. He was out in Brno, as far as I remember, driving with his father.
Wasn't he with Rick as well?
Well, all 3 of them.
Yeah, I think all 3 of them were sharing the car at Brno.
Yeah.
Interesting point that Diana was making, and I noticed it as well, having been out just a few minutes ago, how the wind is picking up a little bit, and that's been a sign of the weather pattern, if you can describe the weather pattern here in the Algarve as being weather, because it's just sunny most of the time, although we have had some cloud cover. But the afternoons, the wind does tend to pick up. And in fact, on Wednesday, when I actually arrived here, it was almost stormy. You couldn't stand up. In fact, the various banners that get put up around the place, the Creventic people actually had to abandon that effort of putting up the banners because it was so windy. So it's not as windy as it was earlier in the week, but certainly there is a bit of a gusty wind, and that is blowing in their faces going down the main straight, down the start-finish straight. So probably their best chance to get a lot of top speed, you've got a wind in your face, and that is going to affect top speeds a little bit and mean possibly that we don't see times quite as quick as we saw earlier on. But on the other hand, as Johnny Palmer was mentioning a minute ago, with a completely clear track, I mean, 7 cars around a 6.5 kilometre circuit is almost a dream situation for a lot of these guys, and I wouldn't be too surprised, although in theory it's a short qualifying session. These guys will have time to cycle through all of their drivers, maybe just to give them all a bit of experience on concentrating on the track and not having to worry about traffic.
Bit of extra track time. I'm sure Dai's going to not pick up the excuse of I got caught out in traffic.
Oh, I'm sure it'll happen.
I'm sure it will, but it's going to be no excuse. It's not going to wear for anyone. We've got Dan Wheeler in the 676 Synchro Honda. Marcus Fisher is out in the 869. That's our other A3 entry. That's the BMW 240i of Hofer Racing by Bonk Motorsport. So Marcus Fisher, the Austrian driver.
And already overall in TCE, Joe, a lap faster than we've had all weekend.
Oh, right.
There's your theory of a headwind then, Paul.
Well, quite. It was Sam de Jonge in the 188 AC Motorsport Audi who set what I thought was going to be the fastest time, 156.594 as I started the sentence. But now, as I was completing the sentence, number 112, Yannick Mettler in the Autorama VW Golf has gone quicker still. So 156.315 is the new provisional TCE division pole sitter.
And they are, of course, the championship leaders at the moment, so everything on course for the number 112, the Autorama Motorsport.
No drama for Autorama.
Autodrama.
No, indeed, not so far. So 156.315, Yannick Mettler's best effort so far. Just going back to last year's event, the pole time for a TCR car and in the TCE series was a 155.5. So I don't think
0.8 seconds still to come then.
Yeah, I don't think the kit has changed an awful lot. These
No.
TCR cars haven't been pegged back in any way, and if anything, there's been a bit of development in those 12 months. So we may see a faster time than a 155.5, but we're still, as you say, 0.8 of a second to get closer to that. Meanwhile, Diana Binks down in the pit lane. What news have you got about the 101 car?
Yeah, Red Camel Jordan, they've just brought the car in actually, and they've come into the beginning of the pit lane entry into the empty garage, and just asked the team what they're doing, and they say they're checking the ride height. But I can see that Luke is out of the car and they're checking around the car. But that's all the information they've given me at the moment.
Okay. Checking the ride height, is that as a part of halfway through the session for scrutineering purposes? What do you reckon, Di? Is that something that the team aren't happy with or the officials aren't happy with?
It looks as if it's just the team guys that are down here at the moment, so that seems a bit odd.
I would suggest that what they're doing is checking the ride height in order to ensure that they are legal. And what they're doing now is doing it because, as Di described it, they're doing it in the scrutineering garage. So, and getting the driver out of the car, obviously, as well, that will affect the ride height. So they've probably lowered the ride height as much as they dare, check on the race officials' place that it is as low as it is allowed to be, and then they're going to send Luke out right on the limit of what they're allowed the ride height to be. It's my guess. Joe, what do you think?
Well, the reason why, I was just going to add something, the reason why you do it in the scrutineering bay is that is the floor where it will be measured for the regulations.
Absolutely.
It makes no point of measuring that in your garage area because the floor might be irregular.
And even if your floor is correct and the scrutineering one is irregular,
That's right.
the one that counts.
That's right, the one that counts, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
So
Rule 1 is the scrutineers are always right. Rule 2 is that when the scrutineers are wrong, Rule 1 applies.
That's the only reason why they would be doing it in there, Paul. It's not like a performance adjustment.
No,
it's for regulation adjustment.
It's just checking. And, of course, Red Camel being, how should we say it, well connected to the organisation, will be able to just say, it's all right if we just come in here and check. Oh, yeah,
I think everyone's allowed to, Paul. I think everyone's allowed to.
Yes, it's just that Red Camel...
Not all at the same time.
Yeah,
just not all at the same time, yeah.
Anyway,
looking back at last year's time, 155.5, yes. That actually put, and I'm going to assume it was Andy Burry that did that time. I don't know for a fact. Burry's generally the fastest in the Kawasaki Racing by Baz Kooten Racing Cupra, as it was 12 months ago. That was virtually a second clear of the field. So everybody, I mean, the next best time was a 156.4. And we're already closer to that, courtesy of Yannick Mettler and the 112 Autorama Motorsport by Wolf Power Racing Golf, because he shaved quite a considerable amount of time off it. And we're now to within 0.2 of a second. 155.709 is Mettler's best time so far, and that is only 0.4 of a second quicker than Sam de Jonge in the 188 AC Motorsport Audi. Meanwhile, the BMW, which is number 869, being driven by Marcus Fischer, is an A3 car. This is the BMW 240i Racing Cup car that is often found in Klasse Cup 5 in the VLNs, and that take place at the Nürburgring Nordschleife and indeed the Nürburgring 24 as well. So the multicoloured, almost art car-esque Marcus Fischer machine just negotiating this lap, but the last time around for the Austrian, that was his best lap, a 202.636, to put that car the best of the two A3 entries.
And Yannick Mettler now getting aboard the 112, currently on the provisional pole. So
I think he's been in it since the start, Joe.
Oh, has he? I didn't think that was the driver in the 112. I thought it was... Oh, yes, I'm thinking of another car. Right, just carry on.
Yep.
Talk amongst yourself.
No, that's fine. Whilst,
I was thinking of a different car altogether.
You were thinking
Marcus
of
Fischer. I was thinking of 869.
Yeah, OK. So, yes, the pole sitter in A3 is indeed Marcus Fischer, but he's brought the BMW back into the pits. Meanwhile, the Audi A3 LMS of AC Motorsport continues on its way. Certainly very fast across the line was Sam de Jonge, and his lap time that time around was a 156.5. He has done a 156.1, and so Sam de Jonge in the 188 car, AC Motorsport. This is the car that Sam is sharing with James Kay, amongst others. Did see James very briefly earlier today, and he was relishing the opportunity to drive for 24 hours on this very challenging circuit out of the tight hairpin, left-handed hairpin at turn 5, and then the track sweeping to the left and then slightly uphill as they swing through turns 7 and 8. And then up over the crest where you really have no idea which way the circuit is going to go, and then plunging downhill and then through a very fast left-hander before heading back up to the hill, back up to the top of the hill and into Portimao turn and the end of sector 2.
Yeah, and that little rise through turn 10, we're saying, aren't we? 10 and 11?
Yes.
For Portimao. 10, I'd say, is marginally higher than 11. And that is officially the highest point of the circuit before then. This pretty technical section to end the lap, but you can really let the ponies loose through the final corner, sweeping downhill and then actually uphill again before you get to the pit lane entry and, of course, the main start-finish straight and the grid hatchings. Diana's now worked her way a bit further along the pit lane towards where Synchro Motorsport are based. Were there some dramas there for their little Honda FK8?
No dramas. Just as you were talking, Dan Wheeler's behind the wheel, so they brought the car in. They're just really giving it a few more laps. They're happy with the balance and feel of the car, and then they've gone back out to bed in the last set of brake pads on the car, so they're ready for the race.
OK, thank you very much for that. And that means that with 32 and a bit minutes to go, maybe already the focus is turning to using this session as best they can as race preparation, effectively. You know, you put in a relatively quick time early on. They might go again later on in the session for another quick time, but why not use this 45 minutes, which is a little longer than is required for a quick time, to bed some brakes in and get all set for the race. They've also got, everyone's got 90 minutes available to them tonight as well, but some of that needs to be used for the night qualifying portion of the weekend.
The saying is that you only need 2 cars to make a race. Well, that's certainly the case with A3 class. And just talking to the Synchro guys, they are, you know, they're looking at that 869 BMW and they know that that's the car they have to beat. Currently, they are, what's the times there? The best time, 2:20 from Dan Wheeler, like Di's just said. They're just tootling round. But I'm quite sure that Dan has been sent out to start putting in a representative time, because the Marcus Fisher BMW has done a 2 minutes 2, so 18 seconds is the massive gap there, while Dan Wheeler just beds in the Honda brakes. And even though it'll bear, I've no bearing whatsoever what will happen in the race, there's certainly a little bit element of bragging rights there, and the competitive entity of the trio of drivers in that car, Alan James, Dan Wheeler, and for this weekend, Martin Byford. They'll not want to be the second car of 2 in A3. They'll be wanting to do the fastest car in A3, and it's going to be an interesting race as that pans out with just those 2 cars. It's always going to be worth putting, whatever happens, whatever adversity hits either of those 2 teams, it's going to be worth just knuckling down, rolling up your sleeves and rebuilding whatever they have to rebuild and get back out there. It's going to be interesting.
Of course, especially because within Creventic rules, A, you don't have to finish the race in order to be classified as a finisher, and B, in order to be classified in the results, you only have to complete 60% of the distance completed by the winner in your class. So we have had situations, and you probably will remember them, Joe, where the podium has been consisted entirely of non-finishers.
That's right. I remember one, don't ask me where it was, but Colin White came onto the podium and shrugged his shoulders and said, "How am I here?" Yeah. And I said, "I don't really know, Colin. I think you fell out 6 hours ago."
But as I say, that's because of the way the regulations work. As long as you are, you've done the minimum distance. It doesn't matter whether you've taken the checkered flag, whether you've been still running after 24 hours or not.
Let's get another update from Di, because the fastest 2 cars in the session, Diana, I noticed, are now in the pit lane, and one of those is the 188, currently second.
It is, yes, and they've just done a very quick stop, actually. Doesn't seem to be any problems there at all. Had a driver change, and literally by the time I got up to the garage, they were on their way out. But that was a very relaxed check around the car, driver change, and back out on the circuit.
And Mathieu Detry, one of their drivers, also Sam de Jonge, who's been going very nicely so far in this session, just 0.483 of a second slower than Yannick Mettler's time. James Kay and Stéphane Perrin are the other four drivers the other two drivers in the AC Motorsport crew. They are a Belgian squad, back with their Audi RS3, the booted version of the RS3, front-wheel drive, as all cars have to be in the TCR regulations. So that car is currently in the fueling area and holding on to a front row start in the TCE race.
And Dan Wheeler has put in a qualifying time, 2 minutes 3.5. He's just under 9/10 of a second off the BMW of Marcus Fischer. They're currently 5th and 6th overall in TCE. So we are seeing the A3 battle of only two cars, but it is, well, I'm calling it a battle because that's exactly what it is. Both of these teams very, very competitive and want to be the best in class.
The encouraging thing is that they can be so close because they're very different bits of machinery as well. The FK8 will be front-wheel drive, surely. The BMW is rear-wheel drive, so already you've got a difference there. Engine roughly in the same place, but
both cars, Johnny, not too far removed from what you would drive on the road.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Apart from the slick tyres, a little bit of racing damperage, but engine-wise, power-wise, this is exactly the car that you'd be driving on the road in the FK8 Honda Civic.
And historically, the Honda Civic's been a sort of fastback hatchback. It's got a slightly elongated, I won't say wheelbase, but the silhouette of the car is slightly more elongated now to give it more of a saloon look. However, it's still technically a hatchback car, whereas the BMW is definitely a booted saloon. So they will handle very differently, but I'm impressed with how close they can potentially be on single lap speed. And then it's about trying to elongate that through 24 hours. But, you know, we're not going to be talking about tenths of seconds between them. We might be talking about significant numbers of laps between them. But all it needs is a longish drama for each camp. And it makes it very interesting because, you know, you can look at an A3 battle sometimes and go, oh, well, there's 15 laps between them. That's not a fight. And then all of a sudden, one of the cars is in with a big drama. And that time disappears very, very quickly. So it is about also the teams, or the personnel that are involved, how well versed, how well rehearsed are they in replacing a corner if necessary at speed.
It's how they go about dismantling the car, isn't it? You know, to get to the part that's broken, you really need to know what to take off to get at it, how it's boxed in, and that's where the experience comes with running a race car. When you first go out with a race car and you just learning every aspect of it, that's what takes the time in these adverse conditions of damage or problems with the car.
Some good times coming through again because Antti Burri has taken charge of the Top Car Sport by Bas Kooten Cupra. It's Cupra TCR DSG, we're referring to its gearbox, and 156.9 is now the Finn's best time for car 131. That's not good enough to leapfrog it ahead of the 188 or the 112. So third fastest so far for the 131 and a second row start, although Antti Burri due across the line in the next 5 seconds. Will this be a further improvement? The sector times are good, but it's not an improved time for Antti Burri in car 131. And Luke Brokers in the number 101 Seat, Cupra rather, which was being seen to as far as ride height was concerned not too long ago. That 101 car is still fourth fastest. So 155.7, the best time in the TCEs. 156.1 is the second fastest time for car 188, and third fastest at 156.9. But it is Yannick Mettler's time, set fairly early on, which still stands as the best.
James Kay out in the 188 in second place now. The fastest time, just under half a second off the provisional pole, and I'm sure James Kay has the bit between his teeth now as he gets underway for the first of his green lap runs. He's already completed his out lap We'll keep an eye on that car when it comes across the line in front of us, but he's very much into that first flyer. He'll have probably a new set of Hankooks on the 188. It's the SE Motorsport Audi, using all the curb, keeping the momentum flowing. It's a very, very technical track here at Portimao. Getting towards the final stages of the lap, he'll want to be keeping the momentum certainly in the latter part of the track onto the start-finish straight. It's a very undulating circuit here, and circuit knowledge of paramount importance of knowing when you can keep the momentum and when you need to check the car up, because we've got quite a few technical slow bits.
That little bit that you come out of Portimao and you just come over the brow, as Johnny was describing, highest part of the circuit, and then downhill as you plunge downhill. One of the most thrilling bits of the circuit, I reckon.
It's just
Johnny.
like a roller coaster,
Yeah.
and you know, James Kay's stomach will be in his mouth several times around the lap, and that's not because of what he ate for lunch. It's because of, you know, it's literally like being on a Big Dipper through those portions of
He's
the
only
lap.
got himself to blame. If he wasn't driving so fast, it wouldn't be so bad.
Exactly. It will be far more comfortable if he just slowed down a bit, for goodness sake.
I think he's about to pass.
Yes.
There he goes, just in front of us there. Oh, it's a 158.173. Now, I saw a little bit of untidiness there, kicking up the dust, just going beyond the edges of the curb on the outside of certain corners. So James Kidd just getting to grips. Maybe this will be the lap that he puts that Audi onto the pole, but he's a little bit off with that 158.
We'll wait and see what he gets up to on this next lap. Meanwhile, I noticed, Diana Binks, that the 112 Volkswagen Golf from Autorama Motorsport is still in the pit lane. Are they putting some work on that car?
No, they're not. They're actually quite happy. They're just watching the times of the other competitors, and they're just waiting to get a gap to go back out and to set some quicker laps. But they've been chatting to the driver quite regularly. He's happy sitting inside there, even though the temperature must be rising. I think that's probably why they've got all of the doors open on the car. But no, they are just watching the times, the timing screens right now.
Yeah. Well, Yannick Mettler, who is rated as silver by the FIA, so would that make him a semi-pro, Yannick Mettler?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Semi-pro is silver, and anything above silver is a pro as far as Creventic is concerned, and anything below a silver is an AM as far as Creventic is concerned.
But they always have this little bit of wriggle room in that if they think that that's not the appropriate...
Yes, if they think that a silver is too much of a super silver, then they'll classify him as a pro.
Yeah. I think of the 5 drivers that are here for Autorama Motorsport, Yannick Mettler is just about the fastest of the 5.
Very much so, yeah. I wouldn't argue with that at all.
Yeah, so...
Anti-Bury is also very quick, as you were saying earlier on, Johnny, quickest here in qualifying last year. I was about to say, look out for him, because he's on a quick lap. He just set the quickest lap for that car last time around, 156.739. But he then let me down because he came into the pit. So Anti-Bury in the 131, we'll call it a Baz Cooten car, or maybe we should call it Top Car, because that's what it says in big letters on the front of the car. But it is run by Baz Cooten, the best of the Cupras so far, but Anti-Bury not being able to get it going quickly enough.
And James Case just took about a half a second off his previous lap time. He's down, he was at a 158.7, he's now on a 158.2, but he's still just under half a second, or at least the car is. That car is under half a second off the provisional pole sitter, so there's still a chunk of time he's got to find.
Well, Sam de Jonge in exactly the same car, Joe, did a 156.1, and James has now been out for this is his 4th lap of this stint. And Sam set that time very early on in his stint. I just wonder if they've given James the same tyres as Sam had, so the best of the tyres is generally the first 3 or 4 laps, and then after that, whilst the tyres are still good for consistent lapping, they're not going to go off anymore, but you've had the best couple of laps of them.
It just depends what the tactic that they're employing, isn't it, really, whether they are going for a time or whether they're just running the car to suss out certain things, certain aspects of the car, what they're going to need
how
for
much
later
they're interested in setting a fast time, and how much they're just interested in getting the car drivable over a full stint, because very often with this type of thing you want to get yourself out of trouble, In other words, not be too near the back of the grid, but equally you want to just get a car that's going to be comfortable to drive for the full 24 hours rather than one that's very quick over one lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like James Kay, who's due to come by any moment, just stand up and have a look out the window. We're right on the start-finish straight. Has he come through yet, Paul?
He's out at the final corner, coming up across the start-finish line now.
It's a 58.1, so he's just shaving.
As quick as he's been. So James Kay has reached his personal best, but not yet reached the car's ultimate potential.
Well, it's, I think, possible certainly for the 131 car to still improve. Antti Burri has brought that car in, and we can't catch up with Antti right now, but we can with one of his teammates, who is Julien Apotelos, now with Diana Binks.
That was a perfect pronunciation, by the way. I just checked with Julien and he told me.
I did all right.
Well done. Julien, obviously your car's here at the moment. Are you waiting for a gap, or are there any sort of problems out on the track? I mean, we know there's not so many cars, so you've got certainly plenty to gain.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't spoken to Antti, and let's see, but I think he will go out now soon and have a next try.
He's not reporting any issues?
No, I don't think so.
And how have you been to Portimao before?
No, it's actually my first time on the car track, but I've been 4 years ago at the Cortodromo, and but yeah, the track is everything new for me here. But it's a cool track. It's quite technical and obviously also very challenging, but it's good fun.
And how much do the characteristics of your car suit this track?
I think it suits pretty well. The car felt good in the free practice, so I'm looking forward to the race now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julien Apotelos, who is Swiss, and well, we were having a competition there, Joe and I, just to fully work out how old he is, and your suggestion was 12.
Well, I did say 13. Or maybe
he's actually 18.
30,
but he even looks quite a youthful 18-year-old, doesn't he?
Yes.
Started racing in the TCRs last year in the ADAC TCR Championship. Only did a couple of races at Hockenheim as part of the Young Driver Challenge, but has experience of the Cupra TCR DSG from that. And what else has he done this year? This one, white race for Baz Kooten. Oh, was at Dubai as well, though.
He's done enough to score 28 points in the Touring Car Junior Cup, which he co-leads with 3 other youngsters. As far as I remember, the Junior Cup is for 25-year-olds and under, or under 25-year-olds, not quite sure which, but it is for the younger drivers. And Julien Apotelos is, I think he's leading it because his name begins with an A more than anything else. But as I say, there's 4 other drivers who are also on 28 points in that championship, but certainly looking forward to going out. Into the pits now has come James Kay, having reached his limit.
Well, are the other drivers the ones that he raced with in Dubai, then? Is that from this championship, did you say?
The 28 points, yes.
So Ronnie Jost, Loic Hartog and Oscar Graper.
Loic Hartog, yes, not the other 2.
Oh, OK. Interesting. Right. Well, they all raced together in the Dubai 24 Hours anyway at the start of the year. And back for more 24-hour series racing is Julien, so good to have him as part of that lineup. And Antti Burri is a rapid teammate, and he goes out for a little bit more, does the Finn, right now. So the 131 looking to improve. Already we've had nearly 2/3 of this session, though. And
I'm intrigued. Diana's probably in a better position to find this out as to what the 188 is doing. Are we seeing James Kay being given a brand new set of Hankook tyres to maybe go for that time? And maybe that was, as Paul said, James Kay being sent out on Sam de Jonge's old tyres, having been already used. Was that just to maybe find his feet? And now that he's had a look at the track, we're going to give James Kay a new set of Hankook. He's in the fuel station. Don't know if Di noticed what was going on. I know she was talking to that young man, Julia, at the time that we were looking at servicing the 188. Sam de Jonge is back in the car, guys. 188. The Audi has taken on a splash of fuel. It was barely in the fueling station, according to the timing screen, and now he's out on his outlap, so keep an eye out His fastest time 1:56.1 from his first run. And Paul, you said, did that time come on his first lap or his third lap?
It was very early on in the session.
I think it was his third lap.
Yeah. The guy I'm keeping an eye on at the moment is Anti-Bury, because he's now on his flying lap. It was his third lap that Sam de Jong set his lap on. So Anti-Bury heading down into the hairpin by what apparently we're supposed to call the VIP tower.
Oh, right.
Which is the big round building, which you don't need.
The rotunda.
The rotunda. And have you been? You haven't been up there yet, have you? If you get the chance, go up there, because go through the tunnel at the back of the paddock and all the way to the top, and you get a lovely view up there.
And do you have to access the building, i.e. inside of the building, to get
and there is a lift. There is a lift, so you don't have to worry about.
But there's no security guards to get past.
Wasn't last year. I haven't been up there this year, but there hasn't been in previous years when I've been up there.
Okay. So the Peugeot, which is entered this weekend by Nordschleifer Racing, is continuing with its laps. And Michel Deroux, Frenchman, I think has been at the wheel since the start of the session pretty much, 172, trying to get quicker and quicker.
Nordschleifer Racing, by the way, our team Alltrans, just a change of name, same team personnel that have been running that Peugeot, but that Peugeot coming to the end of its competitive life, and I think, did they say they're going to run that car at Barcelona for the last time?
That's the idea from the team who we will be no doubt hearing more from. Anyway, meantime, we can go down to Diana Binks, and she has James Kay. Diana.
James, you just jumped out of the car. Now, the commentators were just having a discussion about the tyres, and obviously they changed tyres for your teammate to go back out.
Yeah, well, my teammate Sam de Jong, he had some good experience this morning with the new tyres, so it's better for him to take full advantage in qualifying.
What did you find during your laps out there on the track tonight, and how much are conditions changing?
Well, with this heat, it's amazing. First of all, the wind direction was different yesterday. And with this heat, as it rises and falls, it makes such a difference to the times. It's incredible.
That's when it's always going to come down to a bit of strategy, isn't it, and experience?
Yeah, I think what we've got to do is, I've got two very young drivers in the car here. I'm old enough to be their grandfather, so what I need to do is try and implant some of my 30 years into them. It's not a sprint race. We've got 24 hours to go, and it's not all about the first hour. So it'll be fun anyway.
That's always one of the difficult things, isn't it, in racing? When the new guys start coming through, they're very young, and then they get into endurance racing, and they don't quite understand that there's a long time to go. And what have you had to say to them, or what are you saying to them?
Well, first of all, one of our guys, he's never driven at night, so that's the first thing. We've got to get over that hurdle tonight. But both these young Belgian drivers are very, very good. So they've already done TCR in the sprint races. Sam de Jong is now doing Formula E. You know, these are very experienced guys anyway, even for their young age. It's just, they know what to do. It's just giving them the pointers that they need, really, for this type of stuff.
Do you enjoy coaching and mentoring as well as driving?
I do. I'm learning to. You know, I used to come to these events and think, I've done all this, you know, but why are these guys quicker than me? And, you know, they live in the cars. They live on simulators. It's a different world now. And unless you're at my age, unless you're prepared to actually, you know, help them learn, you're actually going to get nothing from this, because you're not going to be as quick as them. Full stop. You might be over a stint, but actually on raw pace, I'm not.
Well, I'm just hearing from the guys upstairs that Sam has just gone quicker, actually, as we are talking, so it's all working.
Yeah, that's very good, actually. He's a very, very accomplished, very good driver. So.
James, how would you describe this circuit here in Portimao? We've talked to lots of different drivers. They've got different views of this circuit. How would you...
I absolutely love this circuit. It's Alton Park, it's Cadwell, it's all the things that we're used to in the UK. I think that the sausage curves they've put in are a little bit too aggressive. I think it's more down to drivers actually not going off the circuit rather than stopping them going off the circuit. And, you know, it's a fantastic facility. It's just, I don't think it's used enough. That's the problem.
Okay. For the moment, James, thanks ever so much.
Thank you.
Just to fill in some blanks there, because you might be wondering who James Kay was talking about. Mathieu Detry is one of the co-drivers who has come through the Benelux TCR Championship in the past, so knows the cars very well indeed. And Sam de Jong, he talks about, don't think ever raced as yet in the Formula E Championship, but has tested 2 separate times for Mahindra Racing, so has actually driven those cars and done near 200 Ks on each of the 2 individual days, but they were separated by a year. And might be next in the queue, you know, for one of those big teams. And De Jong really proving it now, because he's gone quicker, as Di mentioned during that interview, and set to maybe improve again, gents.
Yeah, he's already gone faster, so he's on the provisional pole, and he's gone faster than anyone in Sector 1, faster than anyone else in Sector 2, and he goes faster than anyone has done in Sector 3, and extends that pole position time to a 1:55.283. And he puts Yannick Medler in the 1:12, who's on an outlap. He's responded. So the Autorama team have responded by putting their driver out. So this is turning into a qualifying battle.
I think the last 10 minutes is going to be quite exciting, Joe. Yeah, we've got, say, Yannick Medler in the VW Golf. Antti Buri just putting his fastest time in of 1:56.49. No, his time was 1:57.079 on that latest new set of tyres. But then Luke Breukers in the 101 Red Camels Cupra has just done his best at 1:57.604. All right, that is a second off what Antti Buri did. But interesting to hear from James Kay what he was saying there about the temperature going up and down, because that's something we saw at Brno as well when the sun came out, so times tended to slow down, and when the sun went in, so it all got a little bit quicker again, and with the wind as well coming in their faces as they come down the main start finish straight. Of course, if the wind drops as you're coming down the main start finish straight, that gives you a bit of an advantage as well.
We had a very strange track surface at Brno, didn't we, with the recent alterations with the shaving of the track surface for MotoGP. It brought about some kind of anomaly where the track would cool off very, very quickly and create a slippery track just by merely a cloud going over the sun and cooling off the surface of the tarmac. I'm not sure it's going to have an exact same effect. Well, certainly I've never seen that effect as dramatic as we saw at Brno. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned there the wind changing direction. I know that, you know, you sometimes change gearing for that when, certainly in single seaters, when you've got the back of the Hewland, you can just pop off and change your 3rd and 4th or your final drive. This is turning into a great battle. Antti Buri just about to come through.
I think he's in the pits.
Yeah, I think so. He's overdue, so that means he's in the pits.
So Antti Buri has done a couple of little stints in that, but hasn't been able to get down to a time even as quick as he went last year, I don't think. 1:56.4 is his best. Johnny did tell us what he'd done last year.
Last year's pole time?
Yes.
1:55.5.
Yeah, so Antti Buri at the moment not being able to go as quickly as he did last year.
No.
In 1:31 and back into the pits. Time, I suppose, for still one more go at it with a new set of tyres.
I've just pulled up a little bit of an article here by simply typing into a well-known search engine, Portimao resurfacing, because I wondered when it might have last been relayed. And apparently there was a bit of complaint from the World Superbike crowd in 2017 that it had become increasingly bumpy over the years leading up to 2017, presumably. So over the winter period, 17 into 18, turn 1, turn 5, and that's on the other track map that I found earlier on in the day. Turn 1 is obvious. Turn 5, which is actually labelled as turn 4 on the track map for this weekend, and the Craig Jones left-hander, which is out of Samsung, very fast left-hander that takes you then up the hill to Portimao. All of that was resurfaced, yes, with new asphalt in the winter of 17 to 18. So certain areas and some of the fast areas have been redone, and others presumably have stayed not quite from the original when the track was built in 2008, 2009, but much older, so a much older track. So I just wonder whether, you know, we speak to some of the drivers later, whether they can actually work out which are the newer bits. And yes, that left-hander up to Portimao does have, it's almost half and half actually. There's dark asphalt on the racing line and the older stuff on the outside of the bend. So that could become interesting overnight when conditions are a little cooler. Going to go straight back down to the pits now and to Diana Binks. See if you found this time. Hear from Di in just a second, hopefully. Meanwhile, Yannick Mettler, almost as in response to the good time from Sam de Jonge, is now setting very good sector times. That's an absolute best through the first sector. And having done a 155, well, all the fives there, isn't it? Last time around, 155.555. Can he now go a quarter of a second quicker, due through any moment? Will this give Yannick Mettler pole position back again? No, but he only misses out by 64 thousandths of a second. This is very, very tight between Sam de Jonge and Yannick Mettler. An Audi RS3 versus a Volkswagen Golf.
Sorry, Johnny, that was a great effort there, and he almost clinched that provisional pole position. 64 thousandths is what he was lacking. Try and quantify that. That's perhaps a metre in length, you know, just lagging back a metre in length. This bodes very well for a long-distance TCR race if these cars are as close time-wise, competitively. And it all, of course, depends when we get towards race time tomorrow, Paul. It all depends on how the other drivers in the team and the variation in performance from the difference of performance in drivers.
Exactly. I mean, 24 hours is all about a team of drivers and about getting yourself through the traffic, which is never quite as simple as you might think it is. Slower drivers told to keep their racing line and allow faster ones to make their way past you. TCRs aren't going to be amongst the slower ones come the race. Sam de Jonge goes across the line again. That's not an improvement from him. But Luke Breukers is the man who's out at the moment and might be worth having a look at. Luke just coming up to cross the line now. We'll see whether he's able to improve his time or not. Except he's coming to the pits as well, so he's not going to improve.
Well, he did last time around, 157.513 for the young Dutchman, but doesn't make it two in a row. So still, Sam de Jonge's 188 Golf is fastest from the 112 Yannick Mettler-driven Autorama Motorsport Volkswagen Golf. Here's Diana Binks from the pit lane for us.
I'm with Dan Wheeler from Synchro Motorsport, the 676 Honda. Dan, we've kept you waiting for a little while. I'm really sorry, we had a little technical issue there. But you've brought the car back into the garage some time ago. Is that part of the plan and the strategy for this part of qualifying?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to put unnecessary miles on the clock. Two cars in the group, so we actually used it for bedding in some brakes and making sure we're fully prepared for the race.
How was the balance and how was the car feeling?
The car felt great, actually, considering we were getting on for hour-old tyres. We did a really good lap time, so if we can do those sorts of lap times during the race on hour-old tyres, we're in a good place, I think.
And what are conditions like on the track? Because I think a few people have said that, you know, the wind's picked up and that's affecting things ever so slightly. Yeah,
I think it doesn't affect us too much. Obviously changes a few braking points here and there, but I miss my braking point most times anyway, so for me it's not a massive difference. But sorry, I was just going to say that a lot of dirt on the exit of the final corner, a lot of bobbles, and need to stay off that really, but otherwise the track's nice.
Dan, I think we might be holding everyone up, because if you could just look behind me, the team are trying to push the car out, and I think Red Camel are trying to come back into this garage. So a bit busy, but you're happy with that performance so far?
Yeah, looking good. Yeah, can't wait to get racing.
Thanks, Dan.
Cheers.
Dan Wheeler from Synchro Motorsport, and has done, well, some of the races in the season last year, but wasn't here in Portimao, I noticed, for Synchro. So did Dan actually refer to the fact that this was his first time at this track?
No, and I would have lost money on that, Johnny. Who was in the car last year? Did Synchro come here?
They did.
And who was in the car? Was it Matt Neal?
Now you're asking. I'll get to that. But it wasn't Dan Wheeler.
Talk amongst yourselves. I would have lost money on that.
Martin Byford being the third driver for Synchro. Very often Synchro do the 12-hour races with just the two drivers.
Yeah, they have done.
And that's very often just Dan and Alan James. I always get the impression when I go down into the synchro garage that everybody has at least 4 jobs. There's nobody there who's just there to be a driver, or there's nobody there who's just there to wash the wheels.
Well, Alan James isn't just a driver, Paul. He's the race engineer.
Yeah, quite.
So while he's driving round, he's thinking of ways of engineering the car. And last time out at Brno, he went radical with an unsymmetrical setup on the front. He went different camber on the right, with different camber on the left. It was tremendous to watch, and it transformed the car.
The checkered flag is out, or at least it would be if there was anyone to show it to. The only person who is going to be possible to be showed it to is the car with the number 1 illuminated on the side, showing it's the fastest in the session thus far, that being Sam de Jong. Had that brief moment where the 188 was driven by James Kay, but I reckon this one is not going to be a quick lap, and he's just going to come into the pits at the end of it. Driving around very gently at the moment is Sam de Jong, in true single-seater style, driving onto the rough boats and getting lots of tyre onto the...
he does want to feel that ride height.
Lots of pick up onto the wheels, but then he will be back into Parc Fermé conditions.
Yeah, there's a reason why Dan Wheeler wasn't here last year. It's because Synchro have never done this race before.
No, okay,
this is the first time that they will take part in the PORTIMAO 24 Hours. They did Barcelona, and you'll remember, some may remember, Andy Hack had an absolutely monster crash. Was that in the race?
Yes.
So they got to the race. It wasn't as if it was in a qualifying session.
It was I think it was possibly the debut of the FK8.
Yes, it was. And the thing went end over end.
The car off, yeah.
Yeah, and Andy Hack definitely knew where the blame lay, because another car was involved, and that was just about his biggest crash of his long and esteemed career. I remember him telling Paul and I later on that day. Here's the result then for the qualifying session for the TCE series. All 7 cars taking part, and TCR pole, and therefore overall pole in the TCE series, taken by the AC Motorsport Audi RS3 LMS. Great time from Sam de Jonge, set sort of halfway through when the gauntlet had already been thrown down by the Autorama Motorsport by Wolf Power Racing Volkswagen Golf, but Yannick Mettler not able to find enough pace. He got to within 64 thousandths of a second at one point, but then de Jonge went through even more quickly, and the gap is actually 0.272 of a second, but that sets things up nicely for the race tomorrow at midday.
Which is slightly larger than it really was, that gap, Johnny, because the 112 car had a time disallowed for exceeding track limits.
It wasn't de Jonge going faster when we got to a point where it was 64 thousandths.
Exactly. That it was that Mettler's time of 64 thousandths was disallowed.
Was deleted, yes. So Mettler's time, we commented at the time that it was a very good lap. In fact, it was too good, because he took to the off-track areas
at turn 1
more than the officials to their liking. So at turn 1, so will that be short-cutting, sort of the inside of one, or is it on the exit?
Going wide on the exit.
Right. And in some configurations of this circuit, there's actually a chicane there, but turn 1 leads to the right-hand kink at turn 2. Anti-Bury in the 131 car, third fastest. It's actually an all-Cupra second row. And a reminder, in A3, it was the 869 BMW from Hoffa Racing by Bonk Motorsport that outpaced the Synchro Motorsport Honda, but there's really not a great deal between those two cars either, just 0.321 of a second. Let's get some reaction from that session then with Diana Binks down in the pits.
I'm down here with the team. You can see they're all celebrating and enjoying this moment. I do want to have a quick chat with Sam, but they're having a photo opportunity, so I'll have to wait till that's over. And he still has his helmet on, so hopefully I can get to speak to him relatively quickly. Sam, I don't know if you can hear me through the helmet. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Congratulations, great job on that qualifying session.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the first stint was quite okay, and I was a bit disappointed when I saw it was like 4/10 off, so I was a bit shocked by that. But yeah, I think the track conditions changed a bit. Track got a bit better, and I found a bit of time, so.
I was busy chatting to James Kay earlier whilst you were in the car, actually, and you actually then just posted a quicker lap, so he was quite happy at that point.
Yeah. I think, James did also a great job, but I was hoping to do better, and we did, so it's good to put it on pole. It doesn't really matter in a 24-hour race, but we all know it's a prestige thing, so.
Well, you always want to go as quickly as you can and be that number 1, don't you?
Yeah, that's it, so we're happy.
Enjoying the circuit here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great track. I drove here a long time ago, but it's still as great, and I think it's with every car a challenge. It's very technical. Also, you have a lot of elevation changes, which is not easy with a quite heavy car like this. So also in setup, yeah, we have to choose the right thing to not use too many tires during a race. It's a long race and it's hot, so.
Are you looking forward to getting out tonight?
Yeah, a lot.
Right, I'll let you have a break. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, just digging through the archives, I reckon he did the 2011 season of the Formula 3 Open, which was sort of came out of the Spanish Formula 3 Championship, and it expanded to other areas of Europe. But he was here in 2011 when he achieved a 7th and a 3rd place finish in a Dallara Formula 3 car. So
And at that
that's
point,
a bit different.
And at that point, he'd have been, what, 19, 18 years of age?
27 now.
Oh, okay, so
we're talking
21.
20 or so. I knew I recognised the name. He actually has gone into the LMP3 category in European Le Mans Series now to join Inter Europol competition, who, of course, were at Le Mans this year with an LMP2 car. But very quick chap, and has had a few years sort of away from touring car racing, but always kept busy in things like the Supercar Challenge, and then with these 2 years or 2 opportunities to test a Mahindra Formula E car.
And so when James Kay talks about a young driver, he's kind of saying relatively young.
Yes.
Bearing in mind
I think Mathieu's a bit younger. I haven't got a date of birth for Mathieu yet, but
Right.
I'm imagining he's probably late teens, early 20s.
Right.
Having come out of the Benelux Championship. So, the 24H Series here in Portimao, qualifying not yet completed. It is for the TCE Series. However, GT Series will commence in about 9 minutes' time, and we will stay on air during the interval for that as the pit lane gets prepared, and obviously the TCR cars are put away for the next few hours as everyone prepares themselves for night practice. And that will be the opportunity, of course, for the drivers in the TCE Series to become accustomed again to a much, much busier track, because, OK, there's only 7 cars in their entry, but they have got to be out there with a further 21 GT Series cars, and that is the point where they've got to start looking in the mirrors again. Because those GT3 cars, if you're in an A3 or a TCR cars, do not half bear down on you very, very quickly if you're not paying attention.
I had a very interesting, if we've got a minute for a little bit of chat whilst we get ready for the GT qualifying session to happen. One of the reasons I was late for our meeting earlier on, Johnny, for which I now apologise, was I got chatting to someone, and it was very interesting because from the team of the AMG car number 500, the brand new, entered by Team Driving Academy, Mercedes AMG. This is the GT3 Evo for 2020 car. And I was talking to them about one of the reasons for entering this race as opposed to doing private testing, because the car has done a couple of private tests. But this is its first race, and I was told that one of the things they're particularly focusing on at the moment is the cooling of the car, making sure that everything gets properly cooled over a long-distance race. And, of course, Portugal, there's a fairly good chance it's going to be warm, so they wanted to take on a challenge from cooling. But the other thing he said is you get absolutely no idea what the cooling will be on the car if you're driving it with nobody else around you. It's only when you're in traffic and having battles with other cars that you really realise how much the airflow coming into the front of the car is disturbed. And however clever you've been with your aerodynamics and your computational fluid dynamics as to how the car is going to treat the air coming into the radiators, it's only by getting it out in a race situation that you really can test how good the cooling is. And that was one of the reasons, one of the chief reasons, he said, that they brought it here into a race scenario to test the car and how the cooling is. Very happy, obviously, with the way it's gone so far. And the drivers reporting that the car is not a whole lot different from the sense of how it feels to drive, but a bit like we heard with the Audi R8 LMS Evo, the idea from Mercedes engineering, customer service, is that the car becomes an easier car to drive. So you're not necessarily going to make it outright flat quicker, but you are making it an easier car to drive, and therefore for gentleman drivers, more consistent for them to do a full 1 hour stint of quick lap times rather than necessarily being able to put a pro in the car and instantly finding a second worth of an advantage on it. But no, I found it very interesting. As I say, we heard earlier on, didn't we, with the Aston Martins, how they've been focusing a lot on getting their cars configured so that they don't overheat, and hopefully, having had a rather torrid time in the free practice session earlier today, we'll see the Aston Martins going around in qualifying. I had a quick look down there as well in the interval, and they seem to be able to, they're looking forward to this session, and we're intending to do the whole of the 45 minutes of this qualifying to get themselves qualified as far up the grid as they can.
Might be an idea, actually, to just look back on free practice regarding this category of cars, this particular race, because the GTs and the TCE entered cars were all given 2 hours of free practice to do with that what they wished. One or two decided to sit some of that time out, and that was generally due to them being forced into that position because they were chasing issues, i.e. the two Aston Martins. But it was a Mercedes that managed to sneak into the top spot from free practice, a 145.619 being set by Henrik Still. And I don't think many people banked on that TalkSport WRT Mercedes being quickest. Now, we have got the balance of performance adjustment to factor into this. The two Ferraris. Two Ferraris?
Two Ferraris, yeah.
It's not more than two, is it? No. So the Scuderia Praha car, the Bohemia Energy by Scuderia Praha entered car, and the Wochenspiegel Team Monschau 488 GT3s have had an adjustment to their turbo boost, which is the turbo boost being turned down by a couple of bar or whatever it is. But what you have done is calculated how much of a percentage they lose out on. And
it's not a huge amount. It's less than 2%. And the point is that they actually have a different setting to how much boost they can use depending on how many revs they're doing. So as you go up through the rev range, so the amount of boost you're allowed to use changes. Yep. And most of what the change has happened is at the top end. So at 6,000 RPM is where the biggest of a change has happened.
This is quite a long start-finish straight. I actually don't know the measurement from turn 15 to turn 1. It'll be written down somewhere, I'm sure. But that is where potentially the Ferrari's not going to be as dominant as it was in Brno, as it was at Spa, although actually to say that they were dominant in Spa would be misleading you. It was incredibly close between the Scuderia Praha Ferrari and the Herbert Motorsport Porsche. But I thought coming away from Brno that Ferrari was almost just a bit too fast because other GT3 cars just could not live with the pace.
But what was interesting at Brno, I thought, Johnny, was not necessarily how quick the Ferrari was, but how slow it was on the early stages of Saturday morning. It was a Friday. We had 3 hours on Friday evening, and then the rest of the 12, so 9 hours on Saturday. And it was, as we did the restart on Saturday morning, I wouldn't say incredibly slow because Ferraris are never slow, but it was surprising how much ground that car lost to the Herbert Porsche in those early stages. And Herbert were really able to establish a bit of a margin. And it wasn't even the second stint, it was the third stint when they finally got to the bottom of whatever it was that was wrong. I think Joe's suggestion was that it was to do with tyres. But it shows how much a race can ebb and flow over a period of 12 hours.
Yes.
And I think what we've got the potential of here in the Algarve is over the period of 24 hours, track conditions could change quite a lot. Although, having said that, there's not a massive change in temperature overnight, or at least there's not predicted to be a massive change in temperature overnight. It's predicted to be quite warm on Saturday night. So we're looking at maybe it going down to 16 degrees on Saturday night, and only up to 25, 26 on Sunday. So it's not one of those days where it really gets cold overnight, as it was actually earlier in the week. But I think you still have to be able to adapt your car to changing conditions, and that's one of the keys to going well in 24-hour races.
Live from the Autodromo International do Algarve, it's the 24H Series qualifying for the 24 hours of Portimao, powered by Hankook. We've already seen the TCE Series cars qualify, and now in a moment or two the track's about to get very busy again with 21 GT Series cars heading out onto the Portimao, onto the Algarve asphalt. And what a place for Joe Bradley to start the session. And you are feet away from a brand new Mercedes AMG, Joe.
I am literally feet away from a bit of history being made. This is going to be the competition debut of the brand new AMG GT from Mercedes. It's here racing, but it's not quite racing. We've just heard Paul explain why the team have brought it here and are testing it for the very first time under race conditions, because it's only race conditions that can really be the proving ground and be an accurate proving ground for their new model. We've seen this many times in our series, the 24H series, where manufacturers, I think Audi have done it, I know Merck's done it with the GT4, but we're now seeing this car. Porsche's another one that comes to mind, that the Manthey team brought the new GT3 Porsche here. But as the number 500, that's going to be starting the race, and they're going to try and be as competitive as they can. But let's not forget that this car is in its very early stages of development. This is the first time, what we're witnessing here, guys, the first time this brand new AMG GT Mercedes is going to be out in an official competitive session.
And judging on how many units Mercedes have sold of, well, going back far enough, the SLS with the gull-wing doors, then moving on to the Mercedes AMG GT3, which has been a big seller, and I know very popular in amongst the non-pro drivers, who have said that it's very easy to adapt to. It's quite a forgiving car, and if it's about to go into a squirrely moment, it gives you lots of notice of that, and you also get the opportunity to rescue a sideways moment as well. I'm sure Mercedes looking to incorporate that, but also evolve, make it an evolution of the older car. And it certainly had some adjustments aesthetically, Joe. It looks a little different from the front, certainly.
It does look very slightly different for the better, I think. I really do like the lines that they've created in the front. Now then, the driver at the wheel of the car is Charles Putman, who's also entered in the number 85 Mercedes of CP Racing. Now the CP of CP Racing stands for Charles Putman, so there's a reason why Charles has taken that number 500 out. He's a prospective customer. He's going to be the exact guy who purchases this car to go racing. So it makes logical sense for Charles Putman to be part of this development process this weekend. And he's the guy who's taking the car out first.
Certainly presented in a striking livery as well, in the orange and black speed lines. I mean, it looks like one of those cars that's incredibly rapid, even standing still in the pit lane and in the garage. But when it's motoring around the Algarve International Circuit, already looks very, very good indeed, Paul Troswell.
This is the very car that was unveiled at the Nürburgring 2 weeks ago as the prelude to the Nürburgring 24 hours. AMG invited all their important guests to see the unveiling of this new Evo. And this is the very same car. In fact, there is only one car, so be careful with it, please. It's the only one we've got. Just to tie down some of the nitty-gritty, it's going to run some 50 kilos heavier than the regular GT3 AMG GT3. And it's also running with 10 litres less fuel. So that's going to mean that it's coming into the pits more often. And, of course, the fact that it's running 50 kilos heavier, I mean, that's probably your weight, isn't it, Di? You know, that's you not being in the passenger seat, or you being in the passenger seat of the new car, which is going to make that much of a difference to it. So, let's say, with the extra weight, it's going to use more fuel, and it gets 10 litres less fuel anyway. So I think it's going to, over the course of the 24 hours, fall back just because of the way that in a sense, balance of performance affects it.
Yeah, I thought we might get an opportunity to see what it could do on a very fast lap, but if that's the case, if that's how they're pegging it back, and deliberately so, then we're not going to be able to see a true lap time, unfortunately, this weekend. However, the team will be able to see past that extra weight in terms of data, and they will have the relevant bits of programming to kind of go, well, that was a really good lap, even though it might be 2 or 3 seconds slower.
Play with the numbers and then get the evidence that they need to support what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and you know, you're looking to try and get Charles Putman on board. You're looking to try and get potentially Rick Brokers, who has experience of other GT cars. What does he think compared to an Audi R8, compared to a Lamborghini Huracan? And then it's further mileage for people like Maxi Boog, who will be driving those cars in the future, because he's a Mercedes factory driver. Hubert Hout still holds that position.
Yes.
And Kenneth Heyer, well, raced with Get Speed Performance at the Nürburgring 24 Hours, so he has experience as well of the older Mercedes. It seems strange to call it the older Mercedes when it's only about 4 years old or so, but we need to be getting used to seeing a lot more in due course of these AMG GT3 Evos.
Good news and bad news for Aston Martin. Caught a brief glimpse of number 417, which is Thomas Padovani going out at the wheel of the 417 Aston Martin. That's the good news. Bad news was that immediately his first flying lap was disallowed for exceeding track limits. So although he went out, set a quick lap, it doesn't come up on the screens because he didn't do it fairly.
Thank you, Paul. One car that's also now joining the session is the 717 Coroiser Racing entered Mark II V8. That's as in the edition of the Mark car. I remember they brought a car out that looked a little bit like a Ford Focus or indeed a Mazda at times as well, depending on what shell you put on it. And then Ryan McLeod's company, Mark, M-A-R-C, produced this car that looks very much like a Ford Mustang, but absolutely is not one. Well, one of its drivers is Jim Briody. Again, Joe Bradley ticking off another 24-hour race.
And this is exactly what I want to talk to Jim about, guys. Jim, what number is this race, 24-hour race?
This race will be number 98.
So you have competed in 98 24-hour races. Are you a bit mad?
Of course I am. Who would want to do this nonsense?
Exactly. So, are you planning to do Barcelona and then get the 100th at quarter on home ground because you're from the United States?
Well, Barcelona will be my 99th,
yep.
And Coda in the U.S. will be my 100th.
And then are you going to continue on to 200?
No, I think I'm going to retire while I'm at the top of this sport.
Absolutely. What about Thunder Hill, though? That could have been 101.
We might do Thunder Hill, make it 101, just to make sure we have a round number.
Just be different. Now, I've just seen the car leave the pit garage. Was everything fine? Was that just a little bit of a check before it went back out?
Just a little bit of a check in the back, probably tie something up.
And is it Coroiser at the wheel?
Pardon me?
Is it Coroiser who's driving the car in qualifying?
Yeah, Cora's going to do the qualifying, then we'll all the drivers to go out for night practice.
What do you think of this car? It's the Mark Cars V8 Mark II. It's a tube frame car. It's bodied that looks like a Mustang. I'm not sure if we're allowed to say it's a Mustang, but it's certainly a Mustang. That's a proper monster of a race car, Jim.
I've looked over the entire car from the top to bottom, the sides, everything, and it's extremely well made. It's a very strong chassis. A lot of thought went into where to put the little niggly pieces, and the car is just infinitely adjustable. And the thing is just absolutely beautifully made.
What's it like to drive? I mean, it's a powerful rear-wheel drive, big engine, lots of power, more power than grip.
Well, I've driven the Trans Am in the U.S., the full Trans Am, when they had 50 and 60 car fields, and my wife, who's standing behind you, was my engine builder. I mean, she could build...
Really?
She could build a 650 horsepower 5-liter V8.
What's your wife's name?
Isn't that what every girl needs to know?
Absolutely. So, I should be asking you this, Jim. Sorry, I need to talk to the brains of the operation. What's your name? Sorry, Mrs. Briody.
Pat Briody.
Pat, what do you make of the car? You're the engineer, you're the mechanic. What's your thoughts on this Mark car?
Oh, it's a beast, and I couldn't think of a better way to finish out his career.
Yeah, it's a great car, and going back to his roots, big engine, rear-wheel drive.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What do you think of the motor installation? Does it meet your requirements?
The what?
The engine installation.
Oh, yes.
Are you happy with it?
Oh yes, it's a fabulous installation.
Do you still get the spanners out then and tinker a bit with a few engines back home?
I haven't touched a wrench in 20 years, and I don't miss it at all.
Why? It's nice to have clean fingernails, isn't it?
Exactly.
Great to talk to you guys. Best of luck for this weekend, Pat, Jim. Best of luck. I'll come and talk to you after we've had a bit of night practice. Great. The Briodis, guys.
Absolutely.
That's what you call passion.
Great to catch up with Mr. and Mrs. Briody and to find out that Pat basically built Jim's engines back in the day. I mean, I was going back to sort of late 80s, early 90s when he was in the IMSA championships and things like GTP and racing world sports cars as well for Pegasus Racing 1996. Jim, this is a big year for him. Yes, ticking off 100 24-hour races, but also celebrating 3/4 of a century, that man. Originally from Chino Valley, Arizona.
He looks very well and very fit.
He doesn't look that age, does he?
It's amazing, yeah.
In any respect. And I'm really pleased that his 100th race can be back in the United States as part of that the COTA event.
I think we just have to make sure that Andrew Marriott's there as well, and then the two 75-year-olds can chat amongst themselves.
Yes.
And no doubt do a lot of common reminiscing. I mentioned the 417 Aston Martin having a time disallowed. We've also had a time disallowed for the QSR Racing School Mercedes. That's the GT4 car that Thomas Jaeger, the German, is down to drive. Although, is it Thomas at the moment? No, it's Johnny De Broeke at the wheel of that car at the moment. Fastest of what we've had so far is Nicky Pastorelli at the wheel of the GP Extreme Porsche. That's car number 24. Second fastest, number 85, Charles Espenlaub, not Charles Putman, but Charles Espenlaub at the wheel of the CP Racing Mercedes. Meanwhile, Charles Putman at the wheel of the 500 car has done a 1:50 already, but Charles Espenlaub has done a 1:45.578, just under 0.3 of a second slower than Nicky Pastorelli. Just to correct something I said earlier on about which car was which in CP Racing.
Yes.
They swapped round. So for those of you who collect chassis, and I know you're interested in knowing which car. So this is the car, Johnny, that did the Dubai 24 hours.
Okay.
And it's doing this 24 hours, but the 12-hour car is at the back of the garage. So they've got both cars here. And in fact, both cars did some laps yesterday in the test session. But
are they sort of deliberately split that way then? So they have a 12-hour car and a 24-hour car?
They, yes, I don't think I think it's public. We're allowed to say it. So yes, they have a 24-hour car, which is slightly slower, slightly more reliable, and they have a 12-hour car, which is slightly faster, but they're a little bit more nervous about its reliability. So
yes.
For a 24-hour race, they have the more bulletproof car. And isn't it nice to have a selection of two to choose from?
Indeed.
But they're not alone in that, because Scuderia Praha Ferrari have two cars in their garage, both of which have the number 11 on the side. Although, interestingly, the car that did the Dubai 24 hours is not the one they're using for this race. So the Dubai one is kind of there as a backup. And Wochenspiegel Team Moncher have two cars here as well. They have their number 11 car, which they run in the VLN, sitting in the back of their garage, as well as their number 22 car. So there's a lot more cars here than are actually going to race. But
of course, that way you can do the first 12 hours in one car and the second 12 hours in another car. If you're Scuderia Praha, then it's down to the scrutineers to spot that.
Yes, I know the difference between them, so I'll be able to spot it for you. And I know the difference between the two Mercedes as well. So.
Yeah, but will you see it at night?
That's a good point, Di, yes.
Interesting.
So in terms of, just to go back to finishing the CP story, if you're interested in the names, it's Sophie, who's the 24-hour car for CP Motorsport, and Abby is the 12-hour car.
Okay, just trying to work out whether there's a way of remembering that, but I'll go away and think about it.
Go and have a look at the cars, and then when you meet them, you'll just kind of get the
conversation will flow, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nicky Pastorelli, fastest so far in the session. This is the GPX Racing Porsche for the United Arab Emirates team, and GPX Racing, formerly GP Extreme. So used to run things like Renault RS01s, and Nicky Pastorelli will have driven those cars in the past, and now getting more and more used to Porsche 911 GT3Rs, the latest spec of which we have, plenty of them in this race. What do they call that? The 991 Gen 2 Porsche. And it's this weekend, isn't it? The new GTE Porsche is going to be launched publicly at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. So we've got a new Porsche potentially on the way, although that will take its time to filter down into the GT3 world. So therefore this is the latest spec, but still with the engine and gearbox in the traditional Porsche position. So engine rearward of the rear axle. Nicky Pastorelli due across the line to complete another lap at any moment. He's did a 1:45.6 last time around, but I reckon this is going to be a lap straight into the pits. and it is indeed, the 85 Charles Espenlaub driven TP Racing Mercedes is currently second fastest, a 1:45.578, and Matteo Malicelli in the number 11 Ferrari, the car we're talking a lot about, is currently third fastest. That time has just been set, and actually within the next 30 seconds, Matteo is due back across the line. Bearing in mind, on this particular lap, he's done an absolute best through the first sector and a personal best through the second sector, so every chance this will be an improvement. Question is, can he go half a second quicker and therefore go straight to the top of the times? We'll wait for that to happen. Meanwhile, though, we'll head back to Joe Bradley, who's in the pits for us.
Well, we've talked about AMG Mercedes using the 24H series as a test bed, but also this weekend at Portimao, we see another car manufacturer having the same idea about coming here with the 24H series and trying out their new car. I'm with Christophe Profit from Ligier, who's brought along the GS2. It's a GT car, Christophe. We're going to have a look at the car behind you while we talk, but this is a car that's being run in Ligier Cup, which is a series of small endurance type racing, mainly in France and mainland Europe.
Yes, we launched this car for the 50th anniversary of Ligier. It's this year. So the idea it was to have a revival car about the GS2 of 1975. We did a second in Le Mans. So it's why the name of the car is GS2R.
I also noticed it's number 26, which was Jacques Lafitte's number as well.
We choose for this weekend the number 26, of course. And this car was launched for the GS Cup in France. So we have 6 races in France and 1 race is in Spa. So it's a small endurance race, 4 hours, 1 6 hour and 1 8 hours. And of course we have a lot of demands now to do other championship and of course the 24 hour.
And obviously the idea is to make the car attractive to customers for series like the 24H series, 24-hour races, 12-hour races. It's already proved itself. It's proved itself over those race distances. So it's probably a perfect customer car. The car is going to do a run. Unfortunately, we're not going to see that on our stream because it's going to be run in the break. It's not going to take part in any of our official sessions, but it's going to be all eyes to see just what the car... I know the car sounds great because I saw a little bit in unofficial practice yesterday. Tell us a little bit about the setup of the car, what engine is in this?
Yes, so we are here, of course, to test the car and to test the car with the slick tires because the GS Cup is with the tires with race road tires. So we would like to test the car with the slick. On the
Lost our microphone there a little bit, Christophe, when we lost Seb. I did notice that the engine is mounted. It's hung off the back of the chassis, and the gearbox and transmission is where the suspension is mounted, which is very, very much like the Ligier LMP3.
Yes, we are manufacturer of the LMP3, LMP2, and also the F3 and 4. And we try to have the same architecture on this car. It's more a sport prototype, but with a tubular chassis, fiberglass bodywork. The engine is the V6 Ford, 3.7 liter. So we have 330 horsepower, but with a serial engine, very less expensive, very reliable, very cheap to maintain. So the gearbox, it's a specific gearbox for Ligier, made by 3MO. So the car is quite cheap. It's never cheap, of course, with a race car, but it's quite cheap.
When we say cheap in motorsport, we mean, of course, relative. Where does the car fit? Is it in between GT4 and GT3, or is it maybe just underneath GT4?
We don't know yet, but we think it will be around the performance of the GT4. And honestly, it's our goal to fit around the GT4, even if it's not a GT4, but I think it's around the GT4.
And for everybody watching and listening at home, if they wanted to get involved with the name Ligier means so much to me. Being that age, I remember Ligier, Guy Ligier in the 60s and 70s. How much would it cost for one of these cars to compete in the 24H series?
So the price of the car for the GS Cup, it's 89,000 €. For the 24-hour series, we are working on a little kit, including brakes to be able to do the whole 24 hours, including drive shaft, maybe a little bit of cooling, lights as well, of course, you need lights. It's almost finished, but the price of the kit will be around 20,000 euros if you want to upgrade a GS Cup car. And the price of the kit for a brand new car will be 15,000 euros. So additionally of the 89.
It's a lot cheaper than GT3 racing.
Yes, it's a not very expensive car in motorsport.
And we're going to see the car out doing some laps after qualifying.
Yes, exactly. We will do some few laps and some footage of the car.
Christophe, great to talk to you. Good luck with that, and I actually hope to see 20 of them. It would be nice to see 20 on the grid.
Me too, as a sales manager.
As a sales manager, of course. Thanks for talking to us, Christophe. I know you're a very busy man. But as you can see from Seb's pictures on the stream, it's a very, very purposeful-looking race car, and it's virtually prototype from the rear bulkhead behind the driver. It would be quite exciting to see these cars out.
No, it's certainly exciting times, and good to catch up with Christophe Profit there, who is the sales and marketing manager of Hankook Automotive, or Ligier by any other name, and exciting to see that car later on today. And I'm sure during the race we may well be able to insert some of the coverage that is then filmed of that car between sessions, between this qualifying session for the GTs and night practice.
And my understanding is that there are going to be some of those cars accepted for entry into the Barcelona 24 hours.
Oh, that early? Wow, okay.
So whether or not they're actually going to have them ready for Barcelona, I don't know, but that they're kind of accepted on the entry, potentially.
To run in which class? Do we know that
to run
yet?
in the Ligier class.
Oh, so it's a specific...
I think that's going to be the plan, yes.
Right. And we don't yet know where that will fall in terms of lap time, I suppose, but it'll be slower than an A6 car.
Yes, I think it will be slower than most of the GT cars.
But it will be a GT Series entrant.
Yes.
Right.
But as we heard from Christophe there, the aim is to make it comparable to a GT4 kind of car. So good to hear from Joe and from Christophe there. And I have to say, it is... an interesting looking car, certainly does look the part, and so it just has these sticker headlights that are becoming quite common in some forms of touring car racing, where they don't have proper headlights, they just have little stickers that look like headlights. I was saying earlier on, because the current stickers on them are black, so what they need is to have white stickers that go over them to enable them to run during the day. Just looking down at cars that we haven't seen so far, we've had most of them out there, 18 out of the 21 cars that we've seen so far. We haven't seen the car collection Audi, but neither have we seen 2 out of the Herbert Motorsport Porsches. We've seen the number 93 car out, but we haven't seen either 91 or 94. Joe Bradley has information about that.
I can shed some light on that.
Good old Joe.
Certainly the 91 car is, they've just been very cool, I think. The car is on its stands, awaiting fresh tyres. Now
this is a car, Joe, that finished 4th in free practice this morning, so they're not short on pace, you know, doing the low 1 minute 46s.
It's only going to get quicker. The track is only going to get quicker.
This is Tim Muller, who has nothing to do with the 91 car. However, Tim, you are in the 94. The 94 hasn't been out either. Are you ready to go out?
We were ready to go out, but we have a problem with the gearbox. The clutch doesn't work.
Ah, right. So that is a problem on the 94.
Yeah, we're trying to solve it. Let's see.
You're still smiling under there.
What to do? Inshallah.
Yeah, you're very pragmatic, I know. Let's hope, fingers crossed, a little bit of time left, still 22 minutes. Let's hope we see Tim Muller out. The 91 car, on the other hand, that car is still not look. In fact, if Seb shows us that the drivers are just sort of in their shorts and not looking like there's any kind of urgency to bring that car out. I'm sure they're going to wait till the last maybe 15 minutes before they put some Hankook rubber on this car and then go for a time.
What's that number 2 car, Joe, sitting in the garage?
Ah, that Paul can tell us all about that one. It looks brilliant, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was out in the test yesterday, and I think they were using it. It's the car. Again, we've done the research on this. It's the car that Herbert used in the Blancpain series last year, and it's the car that Herbert is intending to use in the Spa 24 hours in 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, whenever it's
end of the month,
end of July, isn't it? So it's going to be about 3 weeks' time. They didn't do the Spa test though. And because they didn't do the Spa test, they're kind of bringing it out here to do a shakedown. So I was beavering around there during the optional test yesterday and noticed it was out on Pirelli tyres. And when I suggested to Ole Dorleman, the chief scrutineer or the operations director of Creventic, whether that was allowed, he said, sure, it was an open test.
Oh, yeah.
And the car didn't even carry a transponder, so it didn't appear on any of the timing sheets. So it was one of those events that never happened, really. Well, it did, because we saw it, but what I don't know is who was actually driving it during the free test. Yes, I do, because I saw him get in. It was Alfred.
Are you sure?
Yes, I am.
Bearing in mind Alfred is one of twin brothers.
Yes, no, I've worked out the difference. And
you'll have to teach the rest of us sometime then.
It's all to do with attitude.
Oh, okay.
It's nothing to do with looks, it's just what they're doing. You can tell which one it is by what they're doing at any particular time. Anyway, so that's the number 2 Porsche. And so, whilst we were going on about too many cars in different garages, Herbert have 4 Porsches in their garage.
Yes.
Far too many Porsches for a garage.
Why not? But I remember in previous Dubai 24 hours, the private test session has included drivers that are nowhere near the entry list for the meeting, tyres that really shouldn't be run in a Hankook-backed championship, but can be, and everything is an exception in the private test. And the clue is in the name, I think, for those test sessions. Nicky Pastorelli jumping back ahead of Henrik Still. We have a ding-dong scrap here. In fact, Still's gone through again. Blimey, so the gap briefly was 33 thousandths of a second separating Pastorelli from Henrik Still in the favour of the Dutchman, and now the German driver Henrik Still has gone quicker in the Top Sport WRT Mercedes. So this is Merc versus Porsche. Where's the Ferrari, I hear you ask? Just a tenth of a second further back. And Matteo Magliucelli says, well, if you two guys are embroiled in this battle, I want to get involved as well. And any hint of him sitting out the rest of the session has gone now straight out the window as the Italian joins the party too.
And also, talking of joining the party, Johnny, Max Edelhoff in the number 34 car collection Audi has also now joined the party. He's headed off on an outlap, having got fuel aboard. So we've got the car collection Audi on its way. We've got Robert Renauer, I understand, getting ready to get into the number 91 Herbert Porsche, presumably without a clutch problem. The 94 struggling in the garage with a clutch problem, waiting for Tim Muller to take it out. And then on the circuit, as you say, this battle ongoing between Henrik Still, Nicky Pastorelli, Matteo Magliucelli, who's just left the pit lane. And although I've got various messages on my other screen telling me of penalties for times disallowed for exceeding track limits, they do not affect the cars in the A6 class. That's right, yeah, none of those times that have been disallowed affect A6 class cars.
Pastorelli through again, so not thinking about pitting just yet, but the time is a little slower. It's a 1:45.3. His best so far a 1:45.0. However, in the SPX category, we're getting quicker and quicker. Thomas Jaeger for QSR Racing School in his Mercedes GT4 car, fastest in the 4:54 car, but only by half a second from Marcus Pavarud in the other Mercedes GT4, the Lippert Motorsport example, number 710, and also a couple of other cars improving on that lap. The number 500 brand new Mercedes, the SP4 car, Kenneth Heyer going quicker than Charles Putman managed earlier on, 1:47.462. Max Edelhoff for Car Collection Motorsport going quicker in the number 34 Audi. That car is now fourth in the A6 AM category. And another A6 AM car going well, Klaus Bachler. Well, we shouldn't be surprised that the Austrian's pace there, number 93, doing a 1:45.701. And that is less than a second slower than Henrik Still, but I'm sure there's plenty of time yet for that Am Porsche to join the sharp end. Still, Pastorelli, Magliucelli, Mercedes, Porsche, Ferrari, and a great mixture of manufacturers here. Could we be in store for a very close 24 hours, assuming some of these cars, a lot of these cars, can run trouble-free?
Well, potentially, certainly there, isn't it? You have to say with the AM class cars, maybe the driver lineup isn't quite what's needed to get them through 24 hours. Fastest lap of the session now, though, for Matteo Magliucelli, 1:44.748, puts him a tenth of a second quicker than anybody else.
Great going for Magliucelli. That didn't take long, did it? One out lap and then bang, straight in with a 1:44.7.
New tyres, that's the answer.
Yeah.
I think we had that before. Get the car out, get the tyres warmed up on the out lap, and then go for it on your second lap. You'll have maximum of 3 laps, I would say, of good tyres, and then they'll be past their best.
But also, it's track knowledge, isn't it? Knowing, you know, at 6:15, conditions won't be perfect. At 10:05.27, as we're getting closer now too, all of a sudden just a little bit cooler, and the engine's like that.
We've talked about a few of these guys in this team all know this car very, very well. They've driven together, for a long time, so there's that extra bit of knowledge, and they're obviously passionate about it, which is fantastic, and it's what you want to see.
Certainly, but yeah, having been at this event before, Magliucelli, I'm clearly another one of the big fans of this track, and having to go around the outside of the 417 Aston Martin. Pedro Lamy at the wheel of that car for Team Virage. So we got some superstars now out on track late in the qualifying for the GT Series machines. Henrik Still and Nicky Pastorelli are actually in the pit lane now, so don't have an opportunity to reply to that marker that Italian driver Matteo Magliucelli has just laid down in his prancing horse, the 488 GT3 from Scuderia Praha. So the gap is 0.175 of a second. It's really not much less than that from then Still to Pastorelli, and half a second separates the Nicky Pastorelli time from the number 85 CP Racing Mercedes. Charles Espenlaub last to drive it, and I'm pretty sure we haven't had anybody else in the 85 car so far.
Yes, Espenlaub has been the only driver of that car. Max Edelhoff as well in the car collection Audi has moved up to 7th place with a 1:46.861 for the number 34. David Perel is into the number 22 Wochenspiegel Ferrari. He's done a 1:46.8, but Joachim Krumbach before him did the car's best time of a 1:46.077.
Let's just see what Klaus Bachler's going to achieve here, because he's due across the line any moment to the number 93 car, and Bachler does gain a place in the number 93 Herbert Porsche. That's a 1:45.123, puts him 4th then, behind Magliucelli's Ferrari, Hendrik Still's Ferrari, and Nicky Pastorelli's Porsche. Sorry, Hendrik Still's Mercedes. I'm used to, as I mentioned earlier on, him being with Wochenspiegel Team Monschau, but he's with Toksport WRT. So a good move the right way up the standings for 93, and the 91 car, Joe, is coming.
Yeah, 91 car. That's it, just pulling away, brand new rubber. Robert Renault slotted into the car. Now, the question is just how important Herbert feel that qualifying is, because we've known pretty much all of these races that the Herbert team do. They're not really bothered with qualifying. They qualify 6th, they qualify 7th, they qualify 4th, and then after 3 hours of racing, they're near the front. So I'm not sure whether Robert Renauer is going to go and absolutely blitz it, or basically just put himself somewhere around the top 5.
Can you give us a weather report, Joe? How strong is the wind? 'Cause I think it's the wind that's going to affect it most, going down that front straight.
No different to what it was when I first stepped out here.
Right.
And it's quite blustery, but it's certainly a headwind. They're driving straight into the wind direction.
Yeah.
If you can just look, have you got any flags in front of you? You haven't, have you? Ah, that's
the traditional Creventic flags of the nationalities. Yeah.
You know what?
What?
As Paul mentioned,
that's your job tonight to put them all up.
Well, on Wednesday they couldn't put them up because it was so windy.
Yeah. Yes, we have approached that issue. Yes. So presumably they're not going to go up at all, unless it's going to, as I say, a late night for a lot of the Creventic team.
They're used to that.
True.
Dimitri Angelbert, did you mention his improved time?
No.
Johnny, number 17, the EDEC Sport Racing Mercedes, moves up to 6th with a 1:45.840. He is just over a second off pole position, but he's on the outside of the third row of the grid at the moment. So Ferrari, Mercedes, Porsche, then Mercedes, with the car collection car, Max Edelhoff, now being pushed back to 8th place. And Kenneth Higher in the number 500 Mercedes, the new car, being warned for track limits at the exit of turn 1.
And a certain South African driver who was conspicuous by his absence in free practice this morning now joins the session. Jordan Groger, who was down on the entry list with GPX Racing, again a team he's been long established with, coming out in the number 24 car, so didn't put any laps in earlier on today, but Nicky Pastorelli's had a go with that car. So Jordan now with a handful of laps. Well, there's still 10 minutes on the clock, so we'll get a few in before the checkered flag. And who else came out? Don Baumann in the SPX Mercedes, the Lippert Motorsport car, number 710. Jimmy De Broca's just taken over the 454 QSR Racing School machine. And Shane Lewis takes over the 85 CP Racing Mercedes from Charlie Espenlaub. So there's still the opportunity for some changes in the times in these closing 10 minutes.
Very much so. I think now is going to be the driver's excuse of not being able to get a clear lap because it's so busy. The one who's not out still, the number 94 Herbert car. So frustrating when the car was ready to go and then suddenly that clutch problem that Tim Muller described prevented being able to get out of the pit lane. Robert Renauer, though, with the purple identifying lights on the front of his Porsche. He's making his way around the... is this his out lap or is this his first flying lap? This is his out lap, isn't it, from Robert Renauer? No, this is his first flying lap, tell a lie. So he's done his out lap. He's now coming down into the final turn. And then he'll come through this, call it Clearways, the final corner. Sponsor's name
just
was...
a reverse Clearways, because
yes.
It comes downhill rather than up.
Yes.
And, through Clark Curve, only it's not Clark Curve, it's turn 15 at the Algarve International Circuit, and over the line then goes Robert Renauer to post a 10th fastest time. It's a 1:48.713. Now, what I don't know is the detail about this Hankook tyre and whether you just have to take the top surface off before all of that super quick, very sticky rubber is exposed.
The car seemed to be moving around a little bit under him as he was going around that first flying lap, and that I felt a little bit counterproductive, heading down towards the hairpin at turn 5, past the VIP rotunda. In fact, the view on the stream is the view from the rotunda, from the VIP tower, and then through the shadow of that building before you go up the hill towards a fast right-hander at turn 7, and then continuing to climb uphill to turn 8, and then over the brow as you come out of 8. No idea which way the road goes. It goes downhill, goes to the left, flat out through that. In fact, you're accelerating all the way through. Although you're going through a left-hander, you're accelerating all the way up to the top of the hill, and then it's hard on the brakes to go through the 2 right-handers at Portimao, turns 10 and 11, and then over another brow, and then downhill into another very fast left-hander, before getting down to a tight, awkward left-hander as you go uphill once again, and then over, again, another higher part of the circuit, the double right-hander that then brings you back into where the pit lane entrance is for the bikes, and then missing that pit lane entrance, you come out onto the start-finish line to complete the lap. And Robert Renauer will cut the beam at the end of that lap, hoping to improve on 10th fastest, which is what his opening lap was.
5th. Excellent time, 1:45.286 for the German. So car 91 into the top 5, as is the sister car 93. Klaus Bachler back out for a bit more, probably on new tyres again.
Possibly. Klaus Bachler, it's an interesting comparison between the 2 Herbert cars, because Klaus Bachler being brought in, obviously with bags of Porsche experience, but less Herbert experience.
True.
But, as Herbert has proved in the past, it can be a welcome place for people to visit.
I think it's highly unlikely, though, now that the 94 car is going to make it out. And from what Tim Muller explained to Joe Bradley, that was a significant amount of work that they will have to do on, was it clutch related, he said?
Yeah.
Effectively replacing the clutch, I think.
Yes. Joe's gone very quiet, actually. Do you think he's helping?
I think it'd be very, very difficult for him to hold back.
Yeah,
So found under a car somewhere.
Microphone dropped, spanners picked up, and all of a sudden Herbert Gaynor mechanic. The fact that he's clueless, we won't expose to them, but you know, they'll think he's going to be helpful. He can hold some things. Joe's actually now saying to me off air that he has worked on a Porsche, you know. Was it a 968, perchance? No, it wasn't a 968. Anyway, Pedro Lamy has come in the Team Virage Aston Martin Vantage. That car, by the Portuguese driver, managed to do... I've lost the time now. It was a 156.510. But great to have the 2017 FIA World Endurance Championship GTE AM champion with us, and multi-Le Mans Series champion from years ago too.
But how frustrating to see Pedro's name at the very bottom of the list.
It is.
On his home country.
Agreed. But bearing in mind, you know, the top 4 positions are GT4 cars, and how far away is he from pole time? About 1.5 seconds, 1.4 seconds to be exact, because the car that currently has pole position for the GT4 category is the number 50 Hoffa Racing by Bonk Motorsport BMW M4, and GT4 this weekend has that Beamer, 2 Aston Martin Vantage AMRs, and the Mercedes AMG GT4 from Portuguese outfit Parcalga Racing Team. Parcalga have raced in the Portimao 24 previously, and Paulo Pinheiro last to drive the 412, but that's also in the pit lane now. So steadily the track is getting quieter and quieter, and this might be the opportune moment to try and get a good lap time. What about Hendrik Still? Faster than anybody else through the first sector. He's due across the line any moment, but he hasn't appeared, so I think he's gone in the pits.
Yeah, I think you're
in
right.
Number 15.
Yeah, into the pits then for Hendrik Still. I was just confused by Pedro Lamy, because you were describing the gap that he has back to the pole time in GT4, but that's because Pedro's had a time disallowed for exceeding track limits at turn 15, which is the final turn onto the start-finish straight. So Pedro would have been further up, in fact, would have been within a second of the class pole, but for having the time disallowed on that lap just completed.
What we don't know, of course, is how that car's being set up at Team Virage. I'm sure it is less likely to be set up to Pedro Lamy's liking, i.e. on the very ragged edge, and more to be comfortable for his co-drivers. So we've got CEO Jones, we've got Peter Peters and Thomas Padovani, who is from Estonia. But 2 Portuguese drivers, Pedro Lamy and Peter Peters. CEO Jones, who is from the UK, although I think actually based in Portugal, because he's on a Portuguese licence, isn't he? And Thomas Padovani, who is Estonian through and through.
Improvement for Nicky Pastorelli on that last lap. Johnny, 1:44.976. Leaves in third, unfortunately, but only 5/100ths of a second off a front row position. Hendrik Still's time being a 1:44.923. Pastorelli having done a 1:44.976. And still 2 and a bit minutes of the session to go. Lucelli and Still both are in the pits. So Nicky Pastorelli at the wheel of the GP Extreme Porsche, the GPX Racing Porsche, currently in third and on a fast lap at the moment, just coming towards the end of sector 2.
Great mix of A6 cars though. Pro fastest, then it's an AM car, another Pro, AM, Pro, and then to ruin the pattern, 2 pros together. As to the top of the times, I did think about Klaus Bachler. Well, he's gone absolute best through the first sector, and then 2 PBs to complete the lap. And Herbert Motorsport in number 93 by 0.3 of a second quicker than Matteo Magliucelli's time in the Ferrari.
And it's too late now for Matteo to get out to defend the position, because by the time he gets out and gets around, the checkered flag's going to be out. So poor old Matteo Magliucelli, he'd done the best that he thought he could, but there's going to be no time for him to defend that position. And good old Klaus Bachler, got to hand it to the Porsche driver. And
at the ripe old age of 27. good old Klaus Bachler, but he's been around the block for 10 years probably.
I suppose I think of Klaus Bachler as being a veteran Porsche driver.
Well, he is.
But yes, he's only 27.
Yeah. But I always think of him as a bit of a superstar for the future. Well, he's a superstar for right now and has been for 3 or 4 years.
Winners of the opening round of the Blancpain Endurance Series this year in astonishing conditions at Monza. And Klaus Bachler then could be very pleased with that performance by 0.3 of a second to take away pole position, leaving Nicky Pastorelli in his Porsche and the Top Sport Mercedes in 3rd and 4th places, sharing the 2nd row of the grid. Robert Renauer has not yet returned to the pits, but I don't think he's going to be able to improve on this lap. I think this is going to be an in lap from Robert.
I don't think Klaus is done yet, you know, because he's gone even quicker through the first sector now and due across the line at any moment. Or will it be to the pit lane for the Austrian? Yes, because he should have come across the line 2 or 3 seconds ago. So just showing that he had even more in reserve if it was necessary. But a 1:44.440. The checkered flag is out now. And the question remains, what has Nicky Pastorelli got up his sleeve in car number 24? The engine note you hear in the background is the Porsche of Nicky Pastorelli for GPX Racing. Same piece of equipment as Klaus Bachler. Can he go to the front row to usurp Matteo Magliucelli further? No, is the answer. Although he gets into the 1:45s there and very, very close to being a lap time just underneath the 1:45 marker, became within 0.008 of a second, but he'd already done a 1:44.884, and that puts him in 3rd position. So it's going to be Porsche, Ferrari, Porsche, Mercedes as the front 2 rows for the 24 hours of Portimao for 2019. Let's go straight to Joe Bradley to get some reaction.
Klaus Bachler just climbing from the car to the applause of the team. The sister cars, drivers out of the 94 and the 91. He's just gone behind the screen to get rid of his helmet so we can talk to him, Johnny, and then we'll get the inside on that outstanding pole lap. That was fantastic.
It certainly was, by the young driver from Unzmark in Austria. However, I mean, applause for everybody else involved in that session. That's one of the best of the year for me. Matteo Magliucelli, Nicky Pastorelli, Hendrik Still and Robert Renauer for that matter. Dimitri Enchelbert really wasn't that far away either. And the top 6 separated by a second, Diana Binks. That's all right, isn't it?
But you very, very close, definitely out there. But you can see that these drivers, they've just been leaving it to the last minute, didn't they? Because all this happened literally within the last 5-6 minutes. But they were just choosing their time. Again, that will come down to the experience they've got and the knowledge they've got of this circuit and the cars in particular.
Right, JP.
Yep. Sorry, Joe. I kept you on air there because I thought you would be grabbing Klaus at any moment, and probably you're doing exactly that now.
I haven't quite literally dragged him out, but this is the man of the moment.
Thank you very much.
What a pole lap that was. Tell us about it.
I mean, was really good. With the team did an amazing job to prepare the car. Really fun outside there to drive it. I love the track also. I love the car. It's a good feeling, you know. Now the track gets a bit cooler, so the track also improves. It's a good feeling to drive out there, and I'm happy to be on pole for tomorrow's race. But in the end, it's a long race. It's a hard race. We spoke already a lot in the team. We have a good plan. My co-drivers doing a good job, and I hope we can finish well in the class.
Klaus, everyone else was parked up. The Ferrari was parked in the garage. They thought there was no more time on the track. When you went out there, did you know there was more time to come from you?
I mean, I hoped, yeah. In the end, it worked out. But I think the track was not getting worse or better. I think the track was quite consistent. And we managed to go out again and to improve, which was good.
Great stuff. Congratulations. Pole position for the 24 hours of Portimao. Klaus Bachler and the number 93 Porsche, and I'm sure his teammates are out over the moon.
Certainly so. Well, judging by the reaction at Herbert Motorsport, everyone incredibly chuffed. It's an A6 AM car then that will start from pole position for tomorrow's Hankook 24 Hours of Portimao. It's a midday start, remember, and the number 93 Porsche, the white Herbert Motorsport 911 GT3R, starting then from the inside of the front row. But only just pipped to the post, the Ferrari, number 11 of Bohemia Energy Racing with Scuderia Praha. Championship leaders, 0.3 of a second separates the Porsche from the Ferrari, and Matteo Malicelli just loses out. The second row, the 24 GPX Racing Porsche. Nicky Pastorelli did most of the running there, although we did see Jordan Grogor at the wheel of the car for a couple of laps. And then it's a Mercedes, the best placed of the AMG GT3s, that will start from 4th position, number 15, Hendrik Still. Very talented driver, particularly at the wheel of that Mercedes, although some may be used to him behind the wheel of Ferraris as well, but that car qualifying in 4th position. Then it is a Porsche and Mercedes third row with another Herbert Motorsport Porsche number 91 alongside the 17 Dimitri Engelbert Pro car, which is the Mercedes. Then CP Racing's number 85 car is an AM machine. A little further down the times, in 10th position, the SP4 Mercedes. That's a brand new car, so doesn't really have anybody else in its class, and remember is running 20 kilos heavier, 50 kilos heavier than other Mercedes in this race. SPX altogether, that bodes well for the race, but pole position in SPX taken by the Coroiser Racing Mark II V8 number 717 from the QSR Racing School Merc and the Leipert AMG GT4. The 991 class, again, all three cars locked together in the times. Porsche Lorient Racing score a pole position here in Portugal with their 911 numbered Porsche Cup car ahead of MRS GT Racing. And the GT4 pole position didn't change in the end. We were speaking about Hoffer Racing by Bonk Motorsport a little earlier on with the number 50 car, and the BMW M4 outpaces both Aston Martins and the Parkalga Racing Team Mercedes GT4. We've got further reaction to get from Joe Bradley after a, well, relentless qualifying session. Here's Joe Bradley from the pits.
I saw a very, very happy TalkSport WRT team, car number 15, the Mercedes of Hendrik Still. Henrik, you were on the front row of the grid for tomorrow's race for a short space of time. But hey, you're still at the right end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy here, and we were a bit unlucky with the second set. After the first set, you saw we were on P1 after the first shot, after the first set of tires, and then I think we had a problem with the pressure of the front right tire, so I couldn't catch the lap time again. And yeah, but it's such a long race, so we are sure we have a good pace during the race.
Yeah, the second row of the grid isn't too bad for 24 hours. We've got a very strong headwind here that has just sort of appeared this afternoon. Did that make a big difference to since this morning?
I was not sure. I mean, I felt it, for me, it was just feeling like a bit less top speed today. So, but we tried some things out. So I don't know if it was a wing or if it was a wind. So not sure for the moment.
Henrik, the pace changes now. We're going into night practice. I'm sure you guys want to get the car ready for the race. So thanks for talking to us, and congratulations on the second row of the grid, almost the front row, but hey.
Yeah, okay.
Now let's have a look at some highlights.
So a busy session, to say the very least. The TCEs kicked things off. Okay, it's a small but perfectly formed field for the TCE series this weekend. 5 TCRs and 2 in the A3 category, but 1 or 2 surprises along the way, and it was the 112 Autorama Motorsport car that put in some good times throughout the course of the session. The 188, though, did just about have the pace up its sleeve, and thanks to Sam de Jonge, who was a superstar, along with Mathieu Detry and James Kay and Stefan Parent. That looks like a strong lineup for the Belgian squad. And Sam de Jonge, OK, his last experience of this track was 8 years ago, but it all came flooding back for the Belgian driver. Meanwhile, in the GT series, it could have been a Ferrari, it could have been a Mercedes on pole position, but Klaus Bachler left it very, very late to post a 1:44.440, and that car to the top of the times with just a couple of minutes to spare. So Herbert Motorsport taking pole position from the Matteo Magliucelli Bohemia Energy Racing with Scuderia Praha Ferrari. Nicky Pastorelli in the number 24 car, finishing in third position ahead of Henrik Still. And Robert Renard and Dimitri Enchelbert will complete the top 6 of the grid. The reaction down at Herbert Motorsport towards Klaus Bachler was well and truly deserved. There were one or two glum faces thinking, where on earth did you find that time from? We'll just have to wait and see whether the A6 AM line up there at 93 is good enough to win this year's Hankook 24 Hours of Portimao. The full coverage once again courtesy of the Radio Show Limited network of channels on both RS1 and RS3. But bear in mind, we've still got action to come this evening with night practice, 90 minutes available to all of the competitors in an open session. Starts at 9 o'clock, but we will be on air at 8:50. So, sorry, 8:55, I beg your pardon. So 20:55 for the start of our session, and we will bring you live commentary from trackside here at the Algarve International Circuit. Just time, therefore, to get a bit of dinner and maybe a drink before we get going again. Thank you for joining. Joe Bradley, Paul Trustwell, Diana Binks and Johnny Palmer. We'll speak to you later. Bye for now.
Welcome to the Endurance Racing Series for GT and Touring cars. With the Champion of the Continent, European Championship, TCR Spa 500 and TCR Middle East, that's 12 races across 3 continents. The best endurance racing experience for everyone. Welcome to the world of endurance. This is endurance.